been more often than normal with the law enforcement agencies, the police who are in the front line, and the military. But again, I know what the traditional institutions are capable of doing in every locality. I'm seeking for more cooperation from you. And I assure you, as you mentioned, and this is my second term, I will try and run as fast as I can so that I can leave something behind.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday spent over 6 hours with the nation's security chiefs, reappraising the strategies mapped out to stamp out security issues in the country.
This is particularly because of the improved synergy amongst the various agencies that are providing information and intelligence. Furthermore, we have also had members of the public voluntarily offer information to the areas of the security challenges.
Away from the State House, the federal government has commended the National Assembly for retaining the 500 billion naira budgetary provision under its social intervention program, which focuses on bridging the gap between the poor and the rich. This is contained in the breakdown of the 2019 budget by former Minister of Budgets and National Planning, Udoma.
The President will engage with the new leadership of the National Assembly to address the funding of any of the projects whose allocations were reduced. We will do this by dialogue and engagement. Government will continue to create the enabling environment for the private sector to increase investment so as to increase productivity, create jobs, and stimulate further growth.
We have been able to release to ministries, departments, and agencies 1.263 trillion naira, and for capital supplementation, 309 billion naira. The total capital releases to date, therefore, is 1,573 billion naira, so 1.573 trillion naira.
Now to the National Assembly, where the Senate and the House of Representatives have concurrently passed the 2019 Federal Capital Territory Appropriation Bill of 243.3 billion naira to 24.1 billion is for development of satellite towns.
Expansion and rehabilitation of Outer Northern Expressway and Airport Expressway. The sum of 1.5 billion naira is a mark for the completion of the above two major roads.
But to me, if you look at the amount of 130 billion naira provided for capital projects, is very small.
That's the news beat of Good Morning Nigeria. More news subsequently in the course of the day. The program continues shortly with Kinsley and Claire. Good morning.
All right, now time for us to take some business stories, and here's our correspondent, Chimobi Walton-Naji.
Nigeria is said to be losing billions of dollars to smuggling activities owing to the challenges of the country's porous borders. The menace, especially in the proliferation of galvanized iron and steel products, is said to be affecting local manufacturers who are faced with competing with low quality from other countries, thereby reducing the country's capacity for job creation and foreign exchange earnings.
Let us start supporting the industries that we have so that they can now start making the raw materials that go into such industries. Galvanized roofing sheet is an intermediary industry, but we have it.
All on federal government through the office of the Vice President to quickly set up special anti-smuggling task force saddled with responsibility to put a final stop to the smuggling of roofing sheets into the country.
Here is a graphic representation of trading figures on the floor of the exchange. With business news, I'm Chimubi Walter Nigeria.
And coming up next is newspaper review.
All right. Incidentally, today, of course, is Democracy. That was Democracy Day last year for 29th.
Today's inauguration.
Today's inauguration. The Democracy Day will be on June 12th, as next month. 20 years ago, of course, it was both Democracy Day and Inauguration Day. We have just two papers with us. We hope that before we are through with the newspapers, we will have some of them coming. But of course, the front pages obviously are stories on the inauguration taking place today. Blueprint is the first paper that we're taking a look at. The editorial of Blueprint, of course, starts on the front page, and it says celebrating 20 years of civil rule and other milestones. But the lead story says, as 12 governors vacate office today. Now you have a number of riders there with some bit of chest beating. Gaidam says we've made tremendous impact. Ogun, better than we met it. That's Amosun. I've done my best, attributed to Korocha. Outgoing Budgetary governor leaving 137 billion naira debt. That's according to the committee. And outgoing Zamfara deputy governor heads PDP transition committee. Details of the stories, of course, can be found on page 6. Now, below the photograph there on the front page, it says Buhari stride to the next level. This is a special report on the Buhari years since 2015. The stories can be found on pages 28, 29, 38, and 39. Now, below that, you have a number of other headlines, but let's quickly return again to the top of Blueprint newspaper. EFCC nabs Zamfara SSG's brother with 60 million naira on handover eve. EFCC nabs Zamfara SSG's brother with 60 million naira on handover eve. That's on page 8. Shetima's chief steward commits suicide in government house. That's a sad story there coming from Maiduguri, as the capital of Borno State. Claire, let's take some stories from you and then I'll return again to this.
Of course, while we were, Kingsley was taking the stories from Blueprint, Bayo just walked in. Bayo.
Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Kingsley. Sorry, I was caught up in this.
We thought as much.
The inauguration restriction of movement. Good morning. Yes, on inauguration. Today's inauguration, and President Muhammadu Buhari is to be sworn in for his second term. The same thing is taking place in 29 other states where governors who won elections in March are to be sworn in. As a prelude to this, ministers handed over to Palm 6 yesterday, and at the state level, cabinet were dissolved yesterday, and some governors-elect received handover notes. 7 governors are not affected. There were 20 newly elected governors. Now, 20 of them have won re-election. Only 9 are new governors. At Abeokuta, it was the secretary to the Ogun State government who handed over to the deputy governor-elect. It was received by deputy governor-elect. At Lagos, governor-elect was received by the outgoing governor, and after a closed-door meeting, Mr. Sanwo-Olu came out and assured Lagosians that he will hit the ground running. This morning, if you are taking the commercial bus in Lagos, don't be surprised if you hear the conductor say, Ojota, Ojota, Kusiambomao, somewhere new.
All right, Bayo. Okay, now let's take a look at the front page of the Nigerian pilot. And it has, of course, pictures of, I want to presume, new governors, the newly elected governors that will be taking, of course, their oath of office and allegiance today. If the camera can just, give us a picture of all of them. Yes, I see Bala Mohammed there of Bauchi. I see, of course, the incoming governor for Kwara State, Abdul Razak. I see Lagos, I see Imo, I see Nasarawa, and all of them, of course, I see Zamfara, and the president himself just in the middle. They'll all be, of course, taking their oath and allegiance this morning. The caption is Fresh Mandate as Buhari, 29 governors are sworn in. And then if we go down below the picture story, EFCC closes in on Yari Okorocha and Amusu. We have trending stories at the bottom there. Okorocha appoints high-profile government officials on eve of departure. Read that up on page 41. Now, World Bank supports National Irrigation Program with some amount of money in excess of $400 million. That's on page 11. Now, Senator Bala inherits over 130 billion naira debt from outgoing governor. It's on page 7. Now, Buhari blames past leaders for poverty, insecurity, and Nigeria. An APC deputy national chairman tells Oshomole to resign. That's on page 6. The trending story at the bottom, okay, let's go just above, a little below the nameplate. INEC to review all processes of 2019 general elections. That's the outlook of the Nigerian pilot.
All right, I'll return to some other stories, this time at the foot of the front page of Blueprint newspaper. APC Deputy Chair Lawan to Oshomole quit as party chair. That's on page 6. Bandits kill 23 in fresh Zamfara attack. That's on page 31 of Blueprint newspaper. Now, INEC set for national dialogue on electoral reform. That can be found on page 16. And Bajabia Miller, lawyer withdraws suit over speakership bid. That's on page 13.
Bayo, yes. Some of these new governors, they might be new, but they're certainly not new within the government and governance circle.
Yes, it varies.
They're coming with some degree of experience.
Some have been cabinet members in the state. Some also have been within the public service system within the state. There are others too who are probably greenhorns when it comes to state administration. But be that it may, some of them are bringing other experiences from other aspects of the economy. But be that as it may, the critical point is that many of them, before they are sworn in today, are supposed to have declared their asset. And President Muhammadu Buhari declared his assets, and the forms were submitted. This is required by law. By May 28 was the deadline for end of tenure assets declaration. You know, there are two ways. If you are coming in new, you need to declare your assets. If you have been there for the 4 years, at the end of the 4 years, you need to declare end of tenure assets. That also probably will cover for your new tenure until the end of the 4 years. And from the declaration made so far, Special Assistant to the President, Garba Shehu, says there are no new homes, no new bank accounts at home and abroad, and there are no new shares acquired. The Chairman Code of Conduct Bureau commended the President for providing leadership by example, and it is expected that many of those who are to be sworn in today will have also completed their asset declaration form.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say, the governor's aide that committed suicide in Government House, that's a really sad story, and one would wonder,
Yeah, it's a pretty sad story. It said he was retired from the service, but then engaged as a contract staff. And he had been there, he'd been working for some time at Government House. But unfortunately, there were no signs that he would take a drastic step that he was said to have now taken. But it turned out that his body was found dangling from a tree inside Government House.
He was a personal cook to the governor.
Yes, no, he was steward. Well, it's steward. So. We're having some cases of suicide. If you recall, Bayer and Claire, on this program, must have been a couple of years ago, when people, there were rampant cases of people just leaping off the Third Mainland Bridge and getting drowned in the lagoon. We took on the subject matter on Good Morning Nigeria. And now there was a young man reported the other day, he flunked his medical exams at the medical school, and he took his life, So this is a pretty sad story. As we said, the impact is not necessarily on the one who is gone, but on the society and of course the family.
And the dependence that is left behind, yes.
So rest in peace. There's a story that Claire read with regard to, Okorocha. If you take that story again before we take the editorial.
All right.
Just that headline again.
Yes, it's on the, of course, at the bottom of the Nigerian pilot. Okorocha appoints high-profile government officials on eve of departure.
Ordinarily, there's nothing wrong with an executive who still has his powers up until the time, he hands over to make such appointments. But what has happened, as we have seen, especially in the Fourth Republic, is that such appointments are usually reversed by the administration that takes over. Then you just then ask yourself, what was the need in getting those persons appointed in the first instance? And what then happens to the authority of the incumbent until he vacates office? There are two issues there. Look, any decision taken by a governor, or if the president up until midnight yesterday, 28th of May, will be valid, of course. After that, he's functus official. Now, why then would you reverse the appointment? It is because of bitter politics, obviously.
It's not plausible. I mean, if he were to, have been returned, that would have been understandable. But he's not. I mean, he's not coming back. So what will have informed the appointment?
Well, there are several possible delays. If within the system itself, probably his attention has been drawn that these things have been pending for a long time, and because of political expediency, he couldn't attend to them. And by merit, he ought to approve of it, and he could have done that as a parting gift for them. And if the incoming governor will be fair, you only need to check the rules and see that if they have complied with the rules, you retain them. Those that have not complied with the rules and were done ex gratia, then those ones may be reversed.
I was wondering, Kinsley, thank you for clearing that.
There's also an important point to make. For all governors whose tenure ended yesterday, and of course the new ones who will be taking over, including President Muhammadu Buhari, all appointments that he made with regard to his personal aides, that's to say special advisors, ministers, senior special assistant and special assistant, those are appointments that lapsed by yesterday. Of course, he will make fresh appointments because he's still in office. And the chances are that, of course, if you are a close aide, you will continue to work with him until, of course, you get your letter from the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, because you're a government appointee. The same thing happens also at the state level. Until you are reappointed, of course, you would have been deemed to have exhausted your tenure along with the tenure of your appointer.
So if, for instance, you have such an appointee on your guest, how will you describe him? Will you say former or...
Call him by his name.
Nice.
Very interesting. All right, let's look at the editorial, and quite interesting one. It's coming from, we're taking it from the Blueprint. Celebrating 20 years of civil rule and other milestones. The bottom line of this editorial is, first of all, congratulating Nigerians for sustaining democratic rule for 20 years, and of course, the President Buhari for another milestone as he takes on another term in office. But of course, the editorial did pick out, certain areas that, of course, great areas that would need attention.
Well, I don't know if I can quickly look at this other critical issue. Security chiefs met with the president yesterday, and they reminisced that the Nigeria's border is a challenge, and it is only a prayer to God that can save Nigeria. And I was forced to look at the extent of our borders. In the north, we are bordered by Chad, and it's for a distance of 87 kilometers. In the north proper, we are bordered by Niger, it's for a distance of 1,497. In the east, by Cameroon, 1,690 kilometers. And in the west, by Benin Republic, 773 kilometers. Total of 4,047 kilometers spread. And it is difficult to man these borders. And the security chiefs are now saying that we should call on our pastors and our imams, and if possible, Guru Maharaji and the Ek people to all hew and pray to God before our borders can be safe. That is a very, very serious concern. Now, talking about 20 years of civil rule, naturally, between 1999 and now, our democracy has grown from nascent to an evolving democracy. But much as it is, our politicians have allowed partisanship to obscure the challenges of multi-partisanship, or if you want, bipartisanship, that will enhance development of Nigeria. Most often than not, you have a PhD attitude by politicians. What is PhD? Pull him down. They tend to forget that they are Nigerians and they are all working for Nigeria. We tend to see that politics of dog in the manger. I will not go and will not allow you go. At the end of the day, it is the nation that suffers. And I think the kernel of it all is that we must realize that the nation is greater than any individual or any individual's political aspiration. And the earlier we cooperated to move this nation forward, the better for all of us.
All right, Bayo, thank you very much. Earlier, we were discussing, it said 27 governors. Actually, there are 29. 29. Yes, that's what I said. You know, it was sometimes 7 and 9 and 9 and 7. So one can take a look at that. 20 years of democracy, pretty sweet story for us. But of course, today's Inauguration Day and the first formal celebration of Democracy Day will be on June 12 later this year. Bayo, thank you for being with us on the program.
Thank you too.
Yeah, see you again tomorrow. Today looks like a Friday, by the way, or a Saturday.
Because of the public holiday?
Yeah, well, work-free day.
Work-free day.
Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with our principal item for conversation.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. If you've just joined us, we are looking at expectations from the, should I say, new administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. Join us again after this time out.
Our expectation is high, understand, for the period of 4 years. In terms of agriculture, I think this present administration has done credible well.
Things like Empower that they have embarked on, and then trader money they have been actually carrying out. They should work and improve on it. You know, if it's adding the money and then also empowering more women like they've been doing. And then the Empower, they can also create new batches, because there's still other people waiting on the line to enroll into it. So they should also try and also get those people involved.
The fight against corruption, President Muhammadu Buhari is trying, and kudos to him, but we also expect more from him too.
They have started the school feeding program. As they have commenced, let them also actualize it and go beyond where they have offered and reached.
I want the president to quickly consult his cabinet so that the economy of the country can kick off immediately, and so that things will start moving the way it's supposed to move.
Security is the most important thing for now. That needed the government to come in. If they can address the security situation in the country, from there, every other things will flow accordingly. Another area that I really want the government to concentrate is agriculture.
All right, it's a Vox Pop there by our correspondent, Kunle Ade. You listen to the views of a cross-section of Nigerians. We have guests with us in the Abuja studios as well as from our Benin Network Center. Let's welcome now Malam Garba Shehu. Malam Garba Shehu has always been a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria and, of course, an insider. Malam Garba Shehu, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
It's equally my pleasure. I appreciate it.
Okay, also here with us this morning, Professor Tahir Mamman, Vice Chancellor, Bayes University here in Abuja. Professor Mamman, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you.
Okay.
My pleasure.
And from our Benin Network Center, Claire?
Yes, from our Benin Network Center, we have Dr. Osaoru Okunzwa, who is also a public affairs analyst and not a new face on this program. We'd like to thank you, Doctor, for joining us.
Good to be with you, Claire. Hello, Kingsley.
All right, so let's begin straight away with Malam Garba Shehu. Malam Garba Shehu, in 2015, the talk was all about change. And of course, there was the remarkable event of the incumbent losing the election to the challenger. And here we are in 2019, we're talking about next level. Next level to where and how?
Well, this is a government that promised change and has delivered change. President had zeroed in on 3 key target areas. In security, we had the biggest challenge at that time was the Boko Haram terrorism. Boko Haram had divided this country into 2. They had taken a slice. They had set up a caliphate of their own with a flag, with a system of administration, a system of taxation, effectively 2 countries in one. We have deleted that territory now. Nigeria is one. They don't control a single space of territory in the country. Boko Haram is gone. Perhaps 1 or 2% left on the border with the Lake Chad. That too will be finished. New challenges have arisen. The farmers had clashes, and by the testimony of governors, particularly those from north central states, that one has also been defeated more or less. It's calmed down substantially. But the new ones that are with us lately, kidnapping, cattle rustling, and the mindless killing of innocent people by bandits. Now everyone is up in arms against that. All of the security agencies, they've been mobilized, they are there. And in the last couple of weeks, I think that people are seeing that these things are coming down. And this too will be eliminated. The important thing is that government is responding. New challenges would keep arising, security-wise, and they will be tackled. Economy has also witnessed change. This is a country that spent $5 million every day on rice alone. We imported food that we ate. Now we no longer need to do that. We are food self-sufficient as we speak. Security has been, so economy has been diversified, and it's growing the number of, jobs in the country. 10, 12 million rice farmers. That's there, for everyone to see. So a lot has changed in that regard. The war against corruption has been fought relentlessly. New emphasis is on effective investigation and the prosecutions. The important thing about what has been achieved, the change that is there, is that the environment has substantially been changed. Perceptions have been changed. In the past, corruption was not even talked about. I mean, was not disapproved. It was seen as being normative kind of behavior. So the sense that it is wrong and that it shouldn't happen and that it to be fought among the local population means that the campaign we are waging is effective and is gaining ground. Next level is supposed to build on all the achievements that have been put, that are on the ground.
What would you say, the inauguration that will take place today or in a short while, what has it demonstrated in terms of outcomes of, from the promises?
Well, it is it's a ceremonial event just to mark the commencement of next administration, although it is a continuing one. But to say that it is to say to Nigerians and to the international community, one, that we have a democratic system that works, because democracy is about periodic elections, and where necessary, governments change. And where they perform creditably to the satisfaction of the population, as we have seen, Nigerians were clearly given the choice of either discontinuing with President Muhammad Buhari or giving him 4 more years in a free and fair contest. And President Buhari won clearly and with the biggest margin that we have seen in the Fourth Republic. So this is it. It's a transition from the same government to it's one government that is succeeding itself. But it is a fact that it is a compliment to Nigerians and to say to Nigerians that, yes, you have a democracy that works because it allows, for succession either by the same government or a different one.
All right, Malam Garba Shehu, thank you very much. Let's bring in now Professor Tahir Mama. Professor Mama, before we get into the specifics of next level and so on and so forth, Malam Garba mentioned something that today's inauguration is a ceremony. From the legal point and the constitutional point of view, this isn't a mere ceremony.
It is certainly not a mere ceremony. It's legal validation of the commencement of the second term of the president's mandate. Because by the terms of the Constitution, he has to take the oath of office and subscribe to the allegiance, and this is what will be done today. That is the instrument which empowers him to exercise the authority of the office. So it's not just a mere ceremony at all.
And in the context of Fourth Republic, which is to say 20 years, from a popular point of view, what does this then signify? I mean, we had ruptures in the past, but here we are, it's now a continuum.
Yes, the major point of it is the sustenance of the regularity of our electoral system and the democratic process. This is the sixth or the seventh election that we had, and with a stretch of 20 years of uninterrupted democratic system. We have, of course, hiccups here and there, but the major point is that the elections have been held and won and lost, and then we have new governments, new political governments coming into place, apart from the other structures and institutions which have continued. And a lot of times we tend to focus on the executive. Remember also the legislature. We have a whole range of legislators right across the country whose mandates are also being renewed, have been renewed, and they will be proclaimed. In the case of National Assembly, immediately after, I believe that of the president is done sometime, hopefully next week. And then the state legislature across the country. Of course, the judiciary is there. Their own is not, they don't go through elections like other places, but they are all complementary. They complement each other. And so it's a major development for the country that we've been able to attain the state that we are in.
All right, let's bring in Dr. Okonzwa in our Benin Network Center. Dr. Okonzwa, if we look back from 1960, when, of course, the First Republic came in or was born, we had about 5 years of democratic rule. We've had about 4 years from 1966 to 70. This is perhaps the longest, and as Malam Garba Shehu has said, today's inauguration depicts acceptance of democratic rule. From your perspective, do we now have a stable democracy? Would you consider Nigeria now ripe for, or to say we're no longer a nascent democracy?
Well, to start with, let me congratulate citizens and friends of Nigeria for this duration of democracy we have had, the longest spell, as you have said. But there are usually standards for measuring whether democracy is mature or not. A political scientist, Samuel Huntington, actually said so, devised what we might call a grand canon for assessing that when a democracy undergoes 2 cycles of transition, you could pronounce that democracy a mature democracy. We have had one. 4 years ago, we moved from one governing party to another. And today, we are having the extension of the rule of the party that succeeded the old one 4 years ago. So we are somewhere in between, but there's a lot to be happy about. Our institutions are getting stronger and stronger, and the Nigerians indeed are appreciating the virtues of democracy, though we have many areas where we have to improve our behavior and so on and so forth. So clearly, we can say we are not done too badly. This is the longest we have had. So is the very length of time is anything to go by. Nigerian democracy can be said to have come to stay.
Okay, Dr. Kunzuwa, I mean, give us a sense of what is happening. I know you're not a correspondent, but give us a sense of what is happening where you are. You joined us from our Benin Network studios. There's no ceremony there today because you're having your governorship elections next year. But what is the mood like? Today is the inauguration day for the President of the Federal Republic.
Well, it's a public holiday and it's a restful day, so most people at home, the roads are generally clear. But you know, as we have always said on this program, that Edo being a part of the old Midwest, our temper is generally progressive and democratic, and we are waiting for next year to make our own choice too. We congratulate all the other states who are swearing their governance today. So Edo State, just like our brothers in Delta, our old Bendel territory, Midwestern territory, we are very vibrant as a people. We got a region of our own, constitutionally in 1963, and even the staggering of our own calendar in Edo State here is on account of how robust we are. We probably don't accept anything that is contrary to the mandate of the people. So I think everywhere is calm, in Benin City at least, where I live and work.
All right, Dr. Sawaru, thank you very much. We'll return to you later on in the course of the conversation. Now back to Malam Garba Shehu. Malam Garba Shehu, I mean, there's something tricky about the fact that you're having an incumbent who is getting in for a second term. But this obviously will be more vivid if it were a freshman who was being sworn in. In this case, I'm referring to the president's team. First, what we refer to as first appointments. Of course, the president, once he takes his oath of office along with his vice president, usually first is the vice president, and the president takes his oath of office, and then all the other ceremonial aspects will take place. The appointments that would be expected, there will be, of course, the personal aides and then the cabinet. We had a situation in 2015 where this took quite a while, and permanent secretaries were the ones that filled in that position. What are we expecting in 2019 from the fillers that you have?
As the president himself has said, he would form a government without any delay. Why did it happen in the past? Again, people talk about being tired of blames being apportioned on, but certainly the succession in 2015 wasn't the best we could have had. President-elect Muhammadu Buhari had a transition team that he had set up in good time. That was not attended to because government he was succeeding said no, we cannot have two governments running at the same time. So meetings were barred with ministers, with permanent secretaries. So the actual transition began after swearing in, and since the permanent secretaries had been left behind by the political heads of the ministries, they were in the best position to now come around the president and his transition team and give them information on how to build or what to build upon. That shouldn't be a challenge this time around. What are the appointments that the president will be making first? How will they come? President is keeping that close to his chest. So after the oath of office, we would wait to hear what does he do next.
Okay, we've just, of course, been joined by Chief Michael Ajayi, who is a political affairs analyst also. Chief Michael Ajayi, thank you very much for joining us. Let's also have your opening remarks about, of course, what today, the import of today from your perspective.
Well, thank you very much for having me. The import of today is very clear. It is a celebration of the second tenure of the president and the celebration of another term of democracy. We know we have had bombs, 20 years of democracy, so we expect that the government will hit the ground running against the backdrop of not too good economy, against the backdrop of insurgency and insecurity that is spreading fast. We expect that the president this time around will hit the ground running with his team because he knows everybody. He knows the entire country like the back of his palm. He has been there for many years. In fact, don't let me say he's a three-term president because the first one was a military, but on the sarcastic note, The president knows everything. So on my opening remark, we expect that the president, this time around, will hit the ground running. We have an economic emergency at our hands. We have insecurity at our hands. And so we expect that in a very short while, his team should be constituted, and then we hit the ground running so that the dividend of democracy will spread around the doors of nooks and crannies of Nigerians.
Let me also ask you, sorry, Kingsley, you've touched on, of course, the three parameters upon which this administration campaigned in 2015: economy, security, and of course, social welfare and all that. So, for you, what posture do you think the president should assume in this second term that that he didn't take during the first tenure?
Well, if we look at, against the backdrop of the socio-economic situation of Nigeria today, we all know very well that the insecurity agenda that he set for himself, that is the elimination of Boko Haram, he has succeeded so much. Because in the Northeast, we have about 1.8 million people that were displaced. And most of the local governments were occupied. But the president came in and ensured that we had access to most of the local governments. In Northwest, that did not show face at 2015, we're now having banditry in that area. We have cattle rustling, we have insurgency as a result of gold mine activities that has stayed there for a very long time. So we have currently about 20,000 people now displaced in Northwest. So, and the border is very porous. So we need to strategize in the area of military security as architecture based on what is happening now. We need to rejig, just as I said in this forum some time ago, the president needs to look into the decentralization of Nigerian police force. We expect that community policing will come into it so that the state government is best to tackle insurgency because it's a local thing. The present military police structure is ill-equipped to tackle this matter. And then we have to look at the poverty level. Most of the rural areas, poverty has spread from that place. So you have urban-rural immigration. You now have some people who they call Fulani herdsmen that have now turned themselves into armed robbers on the road, making the roads insecure. So we need to have a reorientation in the area of policing in this country. We cannot we cannot continue to progress in error. We need to change, we need to rejig our security approach if we want to succeed in that area. So we expect the president this time around to turn around the entire policing of this country, looking at community policing critically. Decentralizing police force is very key, and allowing the state government to fund the police is a federal thing. Just as I said in this forum, central policing is antithetical to the very structure of federalism. It's right. It's something that is agreed and settled. So we need to decentralize and then have a law of federal that will regulate the relationship between the state police and the federal police so that they can better handle this issue of banditry. Then on the economic front, we expect the president this time around to rejig the economic approach. Currently, our approach in the area of economy is not too satisfactory as far as I'm concerned. In 2015, our exchange rate was about 200 to $1. But now it's 350 to $1. I think we need to look at that critically. It's not helping us. And our approach to devaluing the currency is not the best approach in managing the economy. Where you have the price of petroleum already fixed, you cannot get out of a cartel of that they call the oil cartel. That is, can you remind me the name?
You're talking about OPEC.
OPEC, thank you very much. So you have OPEC. Price has been fixed. And so you cannot continue to devalue your naira in that context. Because one, what is the objective of devaluation? The objective of devaluation is to increase the price of your import, to discourage you from importing, and reduce the price of your export so that your elasticity of production will enable you to produce more and gain more naira. But now you continue to devalue, and you are destroying your currency systematically. So I expect the president this time around to apply the 1984 approach, which was also applied by Chief Obafemi Awolowo shortly after the Civil War. The currency was changed, and then he was able to suck in the excess naira that is floating in the economy. That is one approach, although currently there's this idea of this decimalization.
Well, I'm sorry, Chief Michael Ajayi, you're drilling into the economy. We'll have the opportunity of returning to that subject matter, because you're throwing up a number of issues. In 1984, there was counter trade, which some persons thought was counterproductive. Counter trade, somebody said it was barter, trade by barter, which wasn't helpful. Then we also had huge debt servicing arrangements in 1984. Those are matters that are very challenging if you were to bring them into the current mix. And some economists have also argued, along with financial experts, that the naira hasn't actually been devalued in the course of what we have seen in the management of the economy since 2015. As I said, we'll return to you presently. Professor Tahir Mama, back again to guide, in terms of our philosophical approach to the second term. In your opinion, what are those lessons that are critical for us over the past 4 years?
Thank you. The first challenge which we believe the president would pay attention to would be the general complaint that the pace of his administration has been slow. Not just in terms of the takeoff, but generally in terms of decision making. It's very important in our democratic system, where the term of office is 4 years, that there should be efficiency in time management. Both in terms of appointment, in terms of policy evaluation and consideration. And then, secondly, it's also important for the new government to pay attention to monitoring implementation of its programs. That, to me, has been a bit lacking in the last system, because ministers will say a lot of things about what is happening. They will give reports. We know there are fake meetings every week. But citizens out there, gauge and give feedback on whether actual government is succeeding or not. So it's not just the official records, but a way of really understanding that these projects are actually touching the ground as they were. The president has his hands, on the plow in terms of the critical needs of the country, the infrastructure. There's no doubt about it. And for me, when we talk about next level as an ideology, these are the things that we people expect that they will focus on. Give more speed to implementation and actualization of those infrastructure, railway, the roads. And talking about some of the roads, you hear that a lot of contracts have been given out, but only in a pocket of places do you hear about ongoing work. A lot of places there's nothing really going on since the contracts have been approved. So to some extent, he needs to avoid churning out policies and be overwhelmed by the number of policies which are thrown on the system, and then the result is not too good out there on the ground. And power, as we know, is the most critical thing. Power and corruption, these two things, and the security, these are really the most important things that are tying the country down. And this time around, in addition to government pursuing with vigor, the actualization of the power that this country needs, we need to engage the other critical sectors, which is the private sector. Honestly, I don't see any reason why the private sector cannot play a major role in the power generation and delivery of the country. And I would have, what Dangote is doing in the petroleum sector is fantastic, but I would have loved to see him come into power as well. Well, this is somebody who has a Midas touch somehow. He puts his money and he makes sure that the result is there. So let people like him come into power. You know, it is not, the power delivered in other countries is not by government. It is all private sector. So whatever it is, whatever obstacles that there are that are really causing problems for actualization, this thing should be cleared, whether it is regulatory or bureaucratic or whatever it is. The government should just forcefully work through all these things within a very short time and then let people come in. It's a money minting business, okay? And it is the problem to all our solution to all our problems. That's the truth of the matter.
Okay, let's bring on Dr. Okozwa again from our Benin Network Center. In the light of Kingsley's question and Prop's response, Dr. Okozwa, I'd like for you to also speak on the issue of security, which is a very critical and fundamental, issue here. In the first tenure, the strategy deployed was, of course, moving the command center, to the theater of war, and of course, extensive reaching out to neighboring countries in a multinational cooperation. This helped us to contain the activities of the Boko Haram, and of course, help us to make the milestones we're celebrating today. So, in this next level, people have said, look, there's also a need to rejig the strategy to contain emerging crises and, criminal activities. How or what do you think should be the president's, attitude towards security, tackling these security issues in this next tenure?
Well, all the measures that have worked should be retained for as long as they're relevant to the evolving situation. But just because the situation itself is dynamic means you need to invest more in intelligence gathering, you need to train our men, you need to arm them, and you need to give them cause to be well motivated. Of course, we appreciate the work they are doing, putting their lives on the line for the collective security of us all. So it's not going to be a thing that can be dismissed very casually. You're going to need experts who are constantly watching the situation, the way it's evolving, and then how to respond to it. Of course, you're going to need all the kind of collaboration and alliances you can build to make sure that the enemy is well contained. And don't also forget that security in this instance is not going to be amenable to military solutions alone. We have to deploy all the arsenal, all the power and prestige of the nation in solving our problems. And I don't really think discussing with the Boko Haram or other security threats should be off the table. We should be able to ask them what they want, and we should be able to go a long way, so long as it is not antithetical to the survival of the country. So not just military response, whether diplomatically or politically, we have to bring all our tools together to make sure that Nigerians can live in a secure space we call our country. So I think the president, being a general himself, with all his advisors and so on, will be up to that. But there should be investment in intelligence so that we know what our situation is from time to time. We are able to project where the enemy is going. Then those who are actually doing the fighting and supporting them, we need to motivate them, arm them, train them, and all that. I think the experts will know what to do about that in advising the president. But so far, I should think, if you are measuring things, that the enemy is getting emboldened. Most analysts believe they have foreign backing and so on. So that will also mean, as I said before, a diplomatic approach shouldn't be ruled out at all. It's not going to be all military. We need to combine all the resources we have to make sure the problem is solved.
Dr. Okozwa, I'm tempted to stay with you before we come to Garbashir with us here in the studios. My colleague Claire, of course, posed a question on one of the specifics, which is security. But on a general level, what are the lessons over the past 4 years that ought to guide the philosophy of the administration for the next 4 years?
Well, the central one I would like to refer to is to know that the security situation is very, very complex, and it may not be answerable to a partisan approach. Security problem in Nigeria should draw on the goodwill and expertise of every Nigerian you can find. So it's not going to be one party blaming the other, or the other party blaming the other one, the other way around. So we have to realize that the problem is a national problem. It may be located in the northeast, but it will affect people in the southwest, in the south-south, and the southeast, and even other parts of the north. So we cannot approach it in the mode of blame apportioning, but rather we have to look for a very rigorous search for lasting solution. I think that should be our approach to it.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Okunzuwa. Back to our studios, Managaba Shehu. When I asked Professor Mamman about what he thought the lessons were for the past 4 years, there were some points that he ticked off. I would like you to respond to these ones, because those issues, of course, will frame the philosophy of the administration. It talked about, for instance, the policy deluge. You know, you have a torrent of policies in his own opinion. We also talked about the decision-making, timing and time management. And what, of course, it's also been referred to as a slow pace of the administration, plus monitoring and implementation of policies and programs and projects. What's your reaction to this? It's quite a mouthful or a handful, but...
Well, from him and also the analyst, Mr. Jai, who is here with us, I think that sometimes as leaders in the ideational area, people who sell, who promote ideas, who give them, we tend to stay in one place and we don't reflect the dynamism of ongoing situations in the country. That situations are changing daily, and we ought to be listening to people who are, you know, in government, in fairness to them. When somebody says, you know, insecurity is spreading, so it has escalated, all right. But if you look at maybe 1-2 weeks going back or a month back, so much has changed and so much is changing. So in fairness to our security services, we must encourage them by acknowledging when they are responding to situations like this. When somebody says no roads are ongoing, no. It's an administration that has at least 2 federal road projects in any one state of the federation. In some states, as many as 10 road projects. Kingsley, you and I were in Nsukka at about the same time. The Port Harcourt Enugu Road had been an ongoing project since the mid-80s. Today it is getting to completion. So a lot of these things are going, but if we assume that if we are stuck to the past, we will not see. I don't understand what policy deluge is, but if there is a cabinet meeting, you probably may not have more than 2 policy papers and about 10 or a dozen, you know, other papers, contracts and approvals, local and foreign, you know, relations and treaties and agreements. So therefore, it's as if we are not listening to our own people and our own government. And I think that should concern us. The other issue of
decision making.
That so are we getting things done? If an administration inherits 2,600 megawatts of power and generates 8,100 megawatts, that's a movement. That is something that touches ordinary. If you are a tailor that enjoyed in Mina, I had done town hall meeting, 1 hour of electricity in 2 days. There are parts of Nigeria today that get power 24 hours of the day. Some half of that. So we are moving. And I think that we should be reflective of changes that are, you know, happening in the country. The president is a very patient man, is a very thorough and painstaking person. We have discussed somewhere else, you know, some of the responses we get from National Assembly when they say, well, wouldn't you sign as we present to you? And the thing is that, you know, the president's office is a very powerful office. The president can pretend that he knows everything. And this has happened in the past in the country. He can call for the bill, sign it, come what may. He has shown his power. But assuming the president decides to say, well, look, there's stakeholders all over the place. If it is salary changes or whatever, how does it impact this one, and that one? And then take your time, listen to all of them, and then factor in their own inputs before a signature is appended.
Okay, Madam Garba, in response to State House correspondent's question during the special interview with the president, one of the questions, the president, on a lighter note, said, of course, that in this next term, that people will, no longer will see him as no longer a Baba go slow and things like that. He actually used that word, that he will not, people will now see his real nature. He also talked about fast forwarding, the security. In fact, he did say the police. Does it give us an idea of what, the president is likely to do in terms of time and in terms of policy direction?
Exactly. Well, you know that I've read newspaper headlines. Some of them have said he had written off the police. It's clear that the president is becoming impatient with the pace of law enforcement in the country, particularly with the police. And Dr. Mama may not like me saying this, but the processes in the judiciary also, they don't seem to match his expectation of how... Oh, I'm happy you're doing that.
Of that process.
Yeah. Okay. And so therefore you can see that the president is giving a commitment that the mill will turn faster with the police, with the justice system. The justice system, they have a lot of problems. And I'm aware that they are putting together their own issues and they're looking to a meeting with the government so that probably if there are expectations that they expect from the executive, those ones should be met. I think that we're getting to the point where the courts, the judiciary, the executive will be on the same page in order that matters of law enforcement, trial of cases, anti-corruption and all of that will proceed more speedily. This is the expectation of the president.
Sorry, Malagaba, clarify this, because there are critical viewers out there. When you say that they will be on the same page, what does that mean?
What I mean
judiciary and executive on the same page.
Is that well, not that they would be in the same bed. That's not my idea. Thank you for...
That's right.
Yeah, yes. But I think that if, as a general objective, that the government, President Buhari leads an executive arm of government which considers corruption as an enemy of the nation. So if you have a judiciary that says corruption is an enemy of the nation, so you have them going together, the objective becomes the same.
Okay. All right. Now, just to inform you that our correspondents are already at the Eagle Square, which is the venue of the inauguration of President Muhammadu Buhari and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo for the second term beginning today, the 29th of May 2019. Now, you can see on the screen there, there's live shots coming from Eagle Square. The members of the services are already on their parade. That's a quick march. So our correspondents, if we're able to get them by voice, will of course give us a sense of how Eagle Square is filling up. Once again, those are shots that we had a while ago from Eagle Square venue of inauguration of President Muhammadu Buhari and Vice President.
Very nostalgic.
Absolutely.
Very nostalgic.
Yemi Osinbajo. Now, let's return to our guests. Again, Professor Maman, in terms of the philosophy of governance and expectations, we can throw in the specifics to illustrate all of that. Some persons would say that a second term often can be very decisive because the incumbent has nothing to lose. He's not seeking for your votes, at the end of the term. So if there were tough decisions he couldn't take in his first term on account of the fact that he needed to weigh the political cost of his decision, he doesn't have that baggage now. Can we read this into President Buhari's second term? And if so, what are the kind of hard and tough decisions that he needs to take very quickly in the national interest?
Well, thank you very much. The presidency of Muhammad Buhari has always rested on somebody with a mission. Has always been somebody with a mission. That's why he tried 3 times to be the president of this country. He persisted until he became. He knows there's a problem which he intends to address. Now, so that speed in the first term was actually a surprise to everybody because of his own agitation and his own background as a military. Now, as you have said, of course, he was tied to some extent by political forces. You remember the party that delivered him, was a product of 3 coalitions. So a lot of things had to be negotiated. And then he also had to learn to adjust to other centers of power in the country, in terms of the legislature, the judiciary, which you could always see his impatience with the workings of the courts.
Yes, Prof, we'd just like to put you a bit on hold now because we're going live to Eagle Square where our correspondent Dele Atumbe is now. Dele, I don't know, what can you tell us so far? What's happening? Earlier on we see, of course, the services do a quick march past. Can you brief us on the situation right now, Dele?
Welcome to this good square, and all is now set for the inauguration of President Muhammad Buhari for 2nd time. To my left, you can see that members of the armed forces are there, and we have people just around that you can see that the people from the diplomatic corps, they are equally here. Nigerians are equal. Nigerians are here, and I equally have with me the permanent secretary in the office of the head of service. Madam, let's take a look at the inauguration of Mr. President. How do you see it?
Well, I see it as the 2nd phase of development in Nigeria. And I want to look at it positively and determine that God himself will do a lot in this 2nd phase.
And if you take a look at it for now, the fact of the matter is that this is the time that this event will be taking place in Nigeria. The first time was when Shehu Shagari came as president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for 3 months between October and December. Well, that was short-lived, and President Olusegun Obasanjo had a 2nd time, and we can know that today too we are making history as President Muhammadu Buhari gets a 2nd time, and this is the inauguration. And I equally have a youth with me. And how do you feel as the coordinator of the youth that our president is being inaugurated today?
It's a wonderful feeling. It's a wonderful excitement. Really, this is what we are prayed for, and God has also granted our prayers. If you can see, the first tenure of Mr. President has been well, and we have benefited so much from his first tenure. We prayed, we canvassed, and we have gotten the victory.
Thank you. Well, one thing is important, that it is the next level. And Nigerians are set, and they have been asking what will be for them at the next level. Let me ask the permanent secretary, what should Nigerians expect for the next level, especially from the civil service?
Yes, for the civil service, we'll be consolidating on many of the programs and projects that we had started. We'll be looking basically at the welfare of the civil servants. We have several packages that are already ongoing and many more that are yet to come. We have, for instance, the rewards and recognition system coming very soon, and that we believe will be a great motivational tool to the civil servants. We also are looking at industrial relations. We are looking at occupational health, safety and environment. And we are also looking to see that the benefit packages of civil servants are improved in all ramifications.
Thank you, my PAM Secretary. The truth of the matter is that in the next few hours, President Muhammadu Buhari will be taking his oath of office from this podium. And first will be the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that will be taking his oath of office. And after the Vice President, President Muhammadu Buhari will take his oath of office from this podium. And over to you in the studio.
All right. Thank you very much, Dile, there, correspondent at the Eagle Square here in Abuja. Claire?
Okay, yes, Kingsley, I remember in 1999, I was in Lagos at the Tafawa Balewa Square, of course, when the Fourth Republic, of course, inauguration took place, and it was quite interesting. And this is very nostalgic for me.
That's right. Congratulations. Where were you when it took place in 1979? We shall get the Second Republic. Okay, now back to our guest. Dr. Kuzu Asawa is still with us in Benin. Balangaba Shehu, Professor Tahir Mama, and Chief Michael Ajayi still with us here in the Abuja studios. Let's go over to Chief Michael Ajayi. Again, the same question I popped to Professor Tahir Mama. In terms of the approach that the president should have for his second term, as it were, basically some would say now he has nothing to fear, he has nothing to lose. He's not going to canvass for votes in 2023 on the basis of the existing provisions and the Constitution, take tough decisions, and then go ahead. What are those tough decisions you would like to see him take?
Thank you very much. The president himself during the campaign has said much about the expectation from him. And he said, even though you have said that maybe there's nothing to lose and so on, he has his name to protect. You know, the name Muhammadu Buhari is an important name that he would like to protect in his tenure. And he said he's going to leave a lot of projects that Nigeria will remember him of. And so he also said during the campaign that he's going to look into a lot of things. He's going to rejig the whole system, and we are going to see a different direction. So in this different direction, just as Prof has said, in the area of power, we expect something better than what we are having now. That is not the fault of this administration. It was the way and manner it was privatized. And one of the lessons learned, just as one of the politicians has said, is to look at that power sector critically, because that is one area that touches the heart of poverty in Nigeria. The hairdresser, the welder, the saloonist, and so on, all these people need energy, and they cannot afford to buy a generator. The cost of diesel is very high. So once power is solved, we think a lot of progress will be made and poverty will be eradicated. In this area, again, I want to give my own view on this, that it's not too good to concentrate problematic areas that touches the heart of the people on one man. We have 3 ministries that are critical in one man. We are all human beings. We have all served this country in different capacity. You cannot have 3 key ministries being manned by one person. It's not funny at all. So there's no magic that person can bring to bear. Power sector, road sector, housing on one person, absolutely it will not work. So we expect the president now to see how he can decentralize, have one person, one expert in each of these ministries so that we can move forward. And I'm very convinced the president will look at this area. Then the area of corruption, the president has done so well. He must be commended. The slow pace of judiciary is a problem. And I think in every interview, he has always cried that I want to do much in this area, but my hands are being tied by the judiciary. We expect if the National Assembly this time around, we cooperate with the president to have a special court for corruption cases, so that it doesn't go through the regular courts. Then we'll have a fast processing corruption cases, and it's going to impact well on the people. We thank the president too for this area in which funding now goes directly to the local government. If you go to most of the local government, let me assure you, it is when the allocation gets to them that they get to the office. The local government chairman, When they know that the allocation is there, they make phone calls, all the contractors will gather, and the money disappears, and the chairman also disappears with it. No single project on the ground. And that is where you have the crisis, and that's why you have banditry. So for now, funding, to be going directly to local government, I think the president deserves a lot of applause. And we now have a monitoring unit that will monitor and ensure that the money goes directly. So now that the local government is going to be more buoyant, we are now doing proper federalism.
I'm sorry, Chief Michael, what is the basis of what you're saying, that the money is going directly to local government? NFIU guidelines kicking off on the 1st of June. It's of course supposed to monitor how the monies that they get are spent on the basis of the state local government joint account that they have. So it's not yet Uhuru, because local government autonomy hasn't been attained yet. Let's be factual about that.
We are moving towards that area. You know, it is in the past, the state government will hijack it because the senior partner in the whole joint account. So they cannot deny that one. I have a look at, my town is the headquarters of a local government, and hardly can we say anything on ground. So the state government have been hijacking it, and that has to stop, because the local units, that is the grassroots. That's what we call the grassroots. That's where we have our fathers, our mothers, our sisters and brothers working they are the farmers working there. So they need to have the impact of government. And so if funding can be monitored to the extent that the state government are no longer hijacking it, I think it's a very great plus. Although we know that there's a pressure group that would not like that, but we want to think of the greatest good for the greatest number. Okay. And that is the approach of this government. I think it should be commended.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Just round off your thoughts.
Okay. So we are expecting the review in the area of judiciary. The National Assembly will cooperate and set up a special court for that, as the president will wish. Finally, on the area of economy, I want to appreciate the president in this area. Our foreign reserve has increased to about $40 billion. That's a big plus from what has been in the past. So we expect that we are going to hit new projects in the second tenure of the president. And one thing the president has said, he wants to write his name in gold. So he has a lot at stake.
All right, Chief Michael Ajayi, thank you. We're getting indication, of course, that soon we might be joining the Eagle Square. But right now you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue with our conversation. Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. State to Benin, where Dr. Osawaru Okonzwa is. Dr. Okonzwa, now, from all we gather, this administration has, of course, told us its intention of consolidating on, the achievements in the different sectors of the economy that it made promised in 2015. Economy, of course, most fundamental. Now, we've seen, of course, the giant strides, the milestones made in different areas, but some of the indices, development indices, show that there's still much work to be done. For instance, the GDP growth rate is put at 1.9, but we've had several, projections from the different financial institutions, from the central bank to the World Bank and all that, all ranging between 2 and 3, of course, as the government has indicated. We also have employment statistics, unemployment at 23%, up from 18-point-something%. So what tough decisions would you want, the president and his team to take in this next tenure?
I think a set of policies that will be citizen-centered. And as a matter of fact, I think this issue of getting preoccupied with GDP is getting discredited now. Most people talk about human development indices now. And to that extent, it's going to be an open thing. It's never going to end. What we need to do is to make sure that we direct the powers of the Nigerian state towards the welfare of the citizens. And as far as the human development indices are concerned, we need to be asking relevant questions. How many of our children are enrolled in school? How many teachers do they have? Do they have enough classrooms? Do they have enough supplies in the class? When the children fall ill, do they have enough healthcare personnel to take care of them? Are pregnant women who are in process of being delivered of babies, do they have enough hands to oversee that process? And so on and so forth. How well fed is the Nigerian? It may appear a kind of pedestrian issue, but these are issues that actually impinge directly on the welfare of the citizens. and so on. Of course, talking about employment as well. So a lot of policies can actually be devised, but the ultimate check will be whether those policies are relevant to the welfare of the citizens. So the GDP thing, I think is high time even our country moved away from there. Most of the international agencies we are talking about, UNICEF, WHO, UNDP, and so on, they say move away from all this. How many of us have access to pipe-bomb water? People have been talking about availability of energy in the country. How much of energy do we generate? Even that itself will help the economy if we're very good at it. So it's very difficult to enumerate what we need to do item by item. We just need to make sure that the Nigerian state is actually devoted to the welfare of Nigerians, even while it satisfies the obligations of Nigeria to the outside world as well. So I think that's what I would say in a nutshell, a kind of summary. A mega policy that will help all Nigerians in their different stations. That's actually what we need to focus on.
All right, Dr. Kuzu Asawari, thank you very much there. We have tweets that have come in from our viewers, so we'll go through them now and then return to our guests. But Amasi H. Adamu tweets, his own prescription is eradicate two evils in the society, unemployment and poverty. And most importantly, this is the third item now, the system should give a listening ear or equal representation to the indigenous people of the Federal Capital Territory. Okay, now Ashiru Mohammed tweets, a stable electricity will translate to multiplier effect on reducing poverty, unemployment, insecurity, and drive industrialization. Government must do all it takes to ensure mechanized agric for food sufficiency, processing, and export. We must develop solid minerals to reduce reliance on oil. This is from a handle, Omen. It says, sincerity in the implementation of government policies and encouraging entrepreneurs who are the engine room of development and growth. Revive our moribund industries to create wealth. And Dele Jack Solomon tweets, as we go into another 4-year term of this administration, it should no longer be business as usual. The government will need to radically alter its macroeconomic approach, liberalize the economy, and maintain an aggressive business-friendly environment with dogged and proactive security mechanism put in place to incentivize investors to take advantage of Nigeria's economic potentials. And he says, happy Inauguration Day. This is coming from Law Alpha C. Security of life and property of Nigerians and other residents from the hands of terrorists, criminals, and kidnappers should remain a priority agenda for this government.
Festus Akimboewa tweets, Nigerians expect PMB to tackle insecurity headlong and develop the institutions necessary for sustainable economic development in our country.
O.T. Zukbea tweets, next 4 years should be geared towards massive infrastructural development and tackling insecurity. It's time the opposition put the country first and help this government achieve her goal. It's time we brought back our lost love like the good old days. Those are the tweets that we are taking in the meantime. Now, if we're not going back to Eagle Square most immediately, we're getting... all right, now we understand our correspondent Ademola Brookslyn Sunday is also at Eagle Square. You can see on the right side of the split screen there, those are live visuals from Eagle Square. That's the venue of the inauguration. Ademola.
Republic of Nigeria for the second time. 4 years ago, the administration promised change of a secured, prosperous, and corruption-free nation. And I must tell you that the administration has been able to liberate every community under the grips of insurgency, fights against corruption fully, talking about the full implementation of the Treasury single account. And at the same time, the National Social Investment Program has been able to give relief to unemployed youths and other Nigerians who are less privileged. But to talk more about the achievement of this administration and talking about the next level here, I have a Nigerian who has dedicated himself to come around and see for himself what is happening here. Sir, can you just tell Nigerians your name and your expectations?
My name is Godfrey Wabunwa. I'm the chairman of Born Nigeria. Basically, a lot has been done in terms of the security. Especially, I would think one of the areas the federal government has done well is on the TSA. The TSA is one government policy that has brought stability. That is one of the easiest ways that the government has fought corruption. Another area is the Empower. The Empower is something I think that is very great. Also, in terms of security, yes, it's been bad, but government has done a lot. If you look at from where we were in 2015 to now, there has been a lot of improvement. And I think that Buhari as a person, what anybody thinks about him, is an honest person, sincerely. And I think this government has done considerably well.
All right, thank you very much. All right, let me just tell you that any moment from now, Mr. President himself, the man full of integrity, the man who Nigerians overwhelmingly voted for, will be coming in. It's back to you.
All right, Brooklyn Sunday, thank you very much. Of course, when you're telling us about what happens next time, we'll have a better feel of the ambience at the Eagle Square. Thank you very much. You can see it, and that's on the right side again. Those are some of the dignitaries at the Eagle Square. The stands are, of course, filling up as indicated. I can't quite see from my monitor here, but that looks like the former First Lady, Mrs. Miriam Abacha, that we saw a moment ago. But of course, we've got our correspondents to fill us in on some of those details. Now, let's return to our guests in the studios. Malam Gabashew. Now, a number of the points that have also been articulated by yourself and the other guests, including Chief Michael Ajayi, we can label intergovernmental relations. The president himself has a dim view of his relationship, that's the executive and the legislature at the federal level. That's one thing to worry about. So next 4 years, what should we expect? That's one. Secondly, the relationship between the federal and the state governments. A number of ideas and proposals keep floating at the federal level, cascading them down to the state level and then the local government level. It's a huge challenge. So what should we expect in terms of intergovernmental relations amongst the arms of government and amongst the tiers of government?
Well, my sense is that, you know, the leadership at the state levels, at the state and the local council levels would be taking an important lesson from the outcomes, you know, of the election that we just came through. Because the president, you know, got re-elected solidly. And for us as a party, as APC, you know, you have seen situations in which the president would win handily in a given state. A party will take all 3 senators. In some cases, party will take all House of Reps seats, and in some cases, even the entire state legislative seats. When it comes to the governor, the people will say, we disagree with you, and they decide otherwise. So what this means is that, and it takes you back to what the president said in his inaugural speech 2015. He said, look, I can't sit here in Abuja, you know, churning out good policies, running the country well, good governance, and then down below me, then there's a lot of rot. So I think from there, the president doesn't have a horsewhip with which to flog governors into line and all of that. However, I think that the voters have now begun to speak. They are more discerning, they are more decisive, and they are saying, yeah, we can use our ballot to punish governors that are not, you know, in line with what we think our country should be doing. I think that's a better way to really align local council states to good governance that is happening at the center.
Okay, Dr. Konswa did say that we need to start asking more questions about human, you know, development in terms of how many people have access to school, how many people have access to good roads, how many people have access to good, you know, quality health care and all that. And if these in the human development indices are anything to go by, then means that we need more of mainstreaming the people to actually be the game changer. So how do we begin to do that in the next 10 years?
Well, I think that what he said is perfectly in order, because it simply doesn't make sense that look, this is a country development. First quarter for this year is 2.1 growth rate, which is significant. It is not the best on the continent. But when you bring all of these things together and you compare with the rate at which the population keeps growing, 3.4 or thereabout, it vitiates everything that you are doing. And at the rate we are going, they are already speculating that maybe 2050, this country is going to be in the top 5 after China, India, and so on, overtaking many of the large countries with the large populations and so on. So yes, if we stay tied to numbers, we probably will just hold ourselves down. And I think that the quality of life of the people should matter most to the people. And I think this has underlined quite a number of actions or inactions of the president. When you look at issues such as maybe petroleum subsidy, for instance, which logically should be done, ought to be done because it's happening all around us, but we're holding it down. Because maybe the president looks at maybe the top can bear, any such, deregulation, but at the bottom level, where the masses of our people reside, the effect will be harsher. And so therefore, although economists will argue and say this is the way to go and this is the right thing to do, leadership has also a responsibility to ensure that policies that are seen to be positive but have a punishing effect on the lower ranks of the population are not allowed to come into play.
Okay, Malam Gabashew, thank you very much. Professor Tahir Mama, what are your expectations in terms of intergovernmental relations between arms of government, in particular the executive, legislature, and between the federal and state governments? There are a number of issues that are on the table. Sometimes they pop up to the top, and also between the executive and the judiciary.
Well, a lot of times, actually, when we talk about fault lines in Nigeria, we tend to see things in terms of ethnicity, regionalism, and all that. But for me, as a constitutional lawyer and a political observer, what I have seen over the years to be a major handicap to our progress is the disconnect between the federal and other centers of power, especially at the state level. The federal government takes less than 50% of the national budget. The rest goes to the states. At the federal level, we have observed some level of checks and balances being operated. Like between the executive and the legislature, you see how fiercely they have been defending their territories. So effectively, they've been able to somehow, perform their role as centers of power, but not between states and the federal government, where so much resources are going on, poured into. And you mentioned cascading earlier on. There's no cascading in the federal system. These entities are different. They are different levels of government. So it's only probably as a matter of good practice that a state may adopt a policy at the federal level, unless they share the same party. If they're in the same party, yes, you can talk about cascading in terms of ideology and projects and all that, but to some extent. But there are no checks and balances at the state level. Everybody is pocketed by the governor. He decides what policies to come up and to implement and not to implement. They dish out money as if it's a personal resources. So these are things which we as a country, we as citizens need to focus on, as we move on, if we want to strengthen our democratic experiment. And as Garba mentioned, to some extent, voters have demonstrated their impatience with governors who didn't perform in office. Take Bauchi, for instance. All the members in Bauchi are APC in the State House of Assembly at national level, but they voted out their governor. Now, this is the right thing to do. This is what voters should be doing now, to tell those in control of government at the state level that, look, the time has come when they have to perform their duties properly and for the benefit of the citizens, along the line which our colleague in Benin said. They are the ones in charge of all these basic developmental projects that we're talking about. Federal government is largely about framework, foreign defense. This is improperly in a proper federal system. These are the things that should be focused on. But things about healthcare, primary school, secondary school, health, primary health services, these are all services that should be dispensed by state and local governments. But what we see over the years, local governments, even with the little they have been getting, what have they been doing with it? They share them. Okay, most of them don't live in their state local government headquarters. They live in the state capitals. When the money comes, they share them, and that is the end of it. So, issue of capacity is also there, but more importantly is an issue to governance, be responsible, taking their work responsibly.
Okay. Let's bring in Chief Michael. Chief Michael, now just a brief response from you. Still on the relationship between the executive and the legislature. A lot of people have talked about that between, of course, the 8th National Assembly. But in whose interest will it be if there is a somewhat convergence of opinion between the two arms?
Thank you very much. It's going to be in the interest of the common man. What we had in the 8th Assembly was not the one that we could be very cheerful about. When you have members of your own party becoming an opposition in an assembly, and that is not the best that one will expect. And we expect that the 9th Assembly will not follow the same path that the 8th Assembly members went through. At the end of the day, it was the masses that suffered, because the president and the members of the National Assembly should be on course. It has nothing to do with affecting separation of powers. There's still separation of powers working, but the principle of separation of powers still says that you must talk, you must collaborate in achieving the best for the country. Look at America, for instance. We've had the president inviting members of Congress, headed by Democrats, to his White House, and they had dinner, they had discussion. Look at the budget now.
And you know what happened thereafter?
Well, let's look at the idea behind it, not what happened thereafter. The idea is that you want a peaceful discussion, a collaborative discussion. That is the fundamental idea. So we should look at the motivating idea. In the case of Nigeria, for instance, we expect that even before a budget is passed, everything had been finished before it went into National Assembly. In a situation whereby a budget was sent into National Assembly in December, and it is coming out at the twilight of the regime, that is not the best. It means that the president and the National Assembly, they are not on the same page. The agitation that should be in the minds of members of National Assembly is how to take care of the grassroots. And the president cannot clap with one hand. So he needs two hands to clap. He needs the cooperation of members of National Assembly. And the National Assembly also needs the cooperation of the president. So when we are talking of the essence of governance, don't forget that the essence of the governance is for the goods and the welfare and security of the common man.
Okay, Chief Michael Ajayi, thank you very much. Let's go very quickly to Dr. Okunzwa in our Benin Network Center to get what should be also his closing thoughts on this conversation, which obviously is one that will be ongoing. We're talking about relationships between and among the tiers and arms of government, particularly the executive and the legislature. If you, your perspective, I mean, what would you like to see? Some persons will say that the antagonism is healthy for our democracy. Others will say it's a big challenge. And then federal and state. What is the limit of partisan politics?
To start with, if we're going to build democracy, we must respect the rule of law as a cornerstone. If we did that, most things will fall in place. But specifically between the executive and the legislative arm of government, what I should be looking for is legitimate cooperation, not collusion. Because If the executive and the legislative were romancing in bed unnecessarily, it would mean democracy itself will be endangered. It would mean the very concept of separation of powers will be in jeopardy as well. So legitimate collaboration, legitimate cooperation should be what will guide the relationship between the executive and legislature. Between the federal government and the state as well, of course, a lot of agitation now about federalism, what brand of it are we practicing and so on. As the discussions are going on, the lines that are already delineated should be respected. Of course, the houses of assembly across the country should also ensure that they perform their role. They shouldn't just carry along as if they are probably there to applaud a kind of monarch or a despot or anything. They should assert their own powers as well. So I think, on the whole, summing everything up, our democracy is going on. A lot of things we need to do. We can do them a lot better if we have the time, and we have the men and the women. If we put statesmanship at the very center of what we do, most of our laws can be interpreted constructively, and the welfare of the people will be fostered. I think that's the whole essence of it all.
All right, Dr. Okunzuwa, thank you very much. Just to take the last set of tweets that we're going to have for this conversation, Suleiman Yahaya says that I think the president needs to have his personal monitoring team, which will report to him sincerely on the progress of his programs and projects. This, of course, should comprise civil society groups, private sector, and the media. This is for tracking members of his cabinet and their performance.
All right, and this one from Fregene Godfrey, specifically directed at Madam Garba Shehu. And it tweets, it's a fact that this government has done well in terms of infrastructure development, but the media enlightenment to the masses by showcasing what the government has done was not enough.
Now, Ruben Oba tweets, I'll expect the president to put in more effort in fighting corruption without considering anyone because he has nothing to lose, and focus also on improving power supply, which will have a multiplier effect.
All right, it's on that note we'd like to appreciate our guests who have come here today to, of course, share their views with us. Let me first of all begin with Dr. Osawaru Okonzwa, Public Affairs Analyst from Benin. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today. And Chief Michael Ajayi, Political Affairs Analyst here in our studio, thank you. Thank you. Professor Tahir Maman, Vice Chancellor, Bayes University, Abuja. We'd like to appreciate you, sir. And, of course, Madam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President, Media and Publicity. Thank you very much. All right, Kingsley.
All right, so that does it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. It's been on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, NTA's network service will, of course, be beamed to you the transactions at the Eagle Square, where the inauguration of President Buhari and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo will take place. We have had our correspondents reporting from the Eagle Square, and I'm sure that the live telecast will continue. Stay tuned to the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Good Morning Nigeria, of course, returns tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
We join Obinio Den right now. Bye-bye.